It's time for Reason.
5 states last night had their primaries, and the blue wave is not happening. The excitement, the activism, and right now the Republicans would have been able to maintain every single one of their seats in the 5 states, whether it was a House seat, whether it was a Senate seat, or whether it was the governorship or anything else locally that may have happened in those states. Republicans would have maintained every single one of them. Where's the blue wave, baby? Where is it? We're not seeing it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America region, right here on the heartland of America in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, KQAM, simulcasting KGPT TV, channel 2610, and across the entire Mid-America network. What's happening? Welcome into the Voice of Reason. It is a Thursday. The pre-Friday celebration is here. It's finally begun. Welcome into it. I know you're excited. I'm excited. Everybody is excited. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. We got some more rain, at least here in the Wichita area last night, and we are moving in the right direction, advancing conservatism on a daily basis, and we got one heck of a show for you today, really a heck and a half, as we have a lot of great guests today. We have a lot of great discussions to be had, both at the federal level and at the state level. Welcome into it. Happy Thursday. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you today. We have, coming up, hour number 2, Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District here. He'll be joining, talking about the Farm Bill and some of the latest discussions with the Farm Bill, along with the statement that he made on some of the appropriations, the bills, the spending cuts that President Trump is actually advocating for, and what that's all going to look like. We'll discuss that coming up in hour number 2. Hour number 3 is going to be part 1 of our legislative recap for the state legislature 2018, as we have State Representative John Whitmer and Chuck Weber in studio. We're going to do this 2 or 3 days, and we'll have an hour with 2 or 3 state legislators in studio talking about the session, what happened, the good, the bad, and the ugly, get their take on it, and be able to break everything down so that way you know exactly what came out of the legislature without the manipulation, the twisting, the biasness of the media, because we're sick and tired of that. So it's going to be a big show today. You're not going to want to miss a bit of it. If you're listening out of Wichita area, out in the western part of the state, KIUL, KYUL, KGYN, and you don't get the second hour and the third hour, don't worry. Don't fret. Don't be wary. We will be playing a replay of some of these interviews coming up the next few days in the first AM hour. And, of course, you can always go to the podcast and listen to it as well. KQAMradio.com. Go to local shows tab, find the Voice of Reason, and you can find the podcast on there after the show every single day. So you can listen to it that way. 10 minutes past the hour, and it's great to have you along today. 316-721-8255. I want to start off today with, in being that there's so many guests, it's going to be really tough to get to as much stories as we'd like to get to today, but we're going to attempt it. And one of them I had to chuckle at, and this is the perfect way to start it. You're starting off the morning. It's kind of relatively early right now. You're trying to figure out how to get going, what you're going to do for the day. You're sipping on your coffee, maybe you're reading the newspaper, and you're just going through the morning grind. And sometimes, every once in a while, the mornings like this are very difficult to get started with, right? It's very difficult, especially if it's dreary and it's rainy and maybe it's a little bit chilly and you just don't want to get moving. I understand. I get it. But there's a story out now, and I see this as a new momentum that's beginning to brew. And you can always see it when activism starts, when the media starts throwing it out there just to see if it picks up any momentum, see if anybody starts thinking about it, talking about it, and if it's going to actually happen or come to fruition. But there's been a mentality going on for a while, and this really started from the progressives who try and think that we are just slaves to the evil corporatist system. This is their mindset, not mine. We are slaves of the corporate system, that the CEOs, the presidents of the corporations, the business owners, they're all a bunch of fascists. They're all a bunch of evil slave drivers. And we are just the peons and the peasants that go to work every day and just work for the man. You ever heard that? That we're just working for the man. And that's usually the mentality of a lot of people, which is why I say every day that we need to carpe diem. We're going to carpe diem so much we're going to pick it up, have to clean it up with a mop, that we utilize the day, that while they complain about going to work, we actually try and utilize the day, and we actually try and be productive in the day. Because work ethic is very, very hard to find nowadays, especially in the young generation, my generation. It's very difficult to find a good work ethic. because people would rather like to complain about work rather than just go and do it. And it's unfortunate. But that's the reality of the day. And because of that, they're planting the seeds to try and change the idea and the concept of how we actually work in society today. Here's the title. The average American worker takes less vacation time than a medieval peasant. Oh, no! We take less vacation time than a medieval peasant. Now, there's a lot of crazy comparisons in this, but let's find out what they're trying to say. The church, mindful of how to keep a population from rebelling back in the day, enforced frequent mandatory holidays. Weddings, wakes, birthdays might mean a week off qualifying to celebrate when wandering jugglers or sporting events came to town. The peasants expected time off for entertainment. There were labor-free Sundays, and when plowing and harvesting seasons were over, the peasants got time to rest as well. In fact, according to a journalist and an economist, found during periods of particularly high wages, such as the 14th century in England, peasants might put in no more than 150 days of work per year. As for the modern American worker, after a year on the job, she gets an average of 8 vacation days annually. And how the peasants during the Dark Ages, the times when we had the peasants and the Black Plague and all these terrible things, and we had something called the caste system, and you were not able to work up in class, were not able to work up in your career, live a decent life in any way, shape, or form, and the church was just as corrupt as the government, and the church ran the government, and the government ran the church, and vice versa, and they all worked together. These are the times that they're trying to compare the United States to. Isn't that a crazy, mind-boggling comparison right there? But they say because of that, they got to take a lot of time off. They got to enjoy it. What did they do? Really, 150 days a year that they actually worked? They really only worked about a half of the year? Less than half of the year? 365 days out of the year, you work 150 of them? Boy, that sounds nice, doesn't it? But what happened? Some cities... some cite the victory of the modern 8-hour day, 40-hour work week over the punishing 70 or 80 hours in the 19th century work spent toiling as proof that we're moving in the right direction. But Americans have long since kissed the 40-hour work week goodbye. And an examination of the work patterns revealed that the 19th century was an aberration in the history of human labor. When workers fought the 8-hour workday, they weren't trying to get something radical and new, but rather to restore what the ancestors had enjoyed before the industrial capitalists and the electric light bulb came to the scene. Go back 200, 300, 400 years, and you'll find that most people did not work very long hours at all. In addition to relaxing during the long holidays, the medieval peasant took his sweet time eating meals, and the day often included times for afternoon snoozes. Here's the difference, and it's sad that we have to actually break this down because this is the lack of common sense that we have in society today. Here's the difference. A peasant in the Dark Ages, in the Middle Ages, in the 14th, 15th centuries, whatever time you want it to be, didn't own their own businesses. They worked for the kingdom. They were slaves. I mean, they owned, quote unquote, their own businesses, but they couldn't really take a whole lot of wealth from that. They paid it to the king. They paid it to the lords. They paid it to everybody. You did not have to survive in a capitalist system with your own business, because nowadays we realize that if we're going to get ahead of everybody else, you got to work harder than everybody else. And we realize because it's up to you. It's one of those differences between the sports teams where you actually play with a team and you have to share the responsibility with everybody else, or a sport where it's all on you and you make or break, or you fail or you succeed by yourself. And there's a big difference there, isn't there? You can own a business. You can do whatever you want to do. You can succeed. You can fail. But if you try to start your own business, if you're going to have that responsibility on yourself and yourself alone, then you need to take that responsibility and you have to work for it. And it takes a lot of work. And that's why many shops, even local shops, even small businesses, even mom and pop shops are now open on Sundays because they have to get ahead, because they see the additional revenue or the potential for additional revenue on a Sunday. Is it right? That's up for debate. But that's the choice of the business. Yes, they took many vacation days back in the day. Yes, they took many vacation days back then after the harvesting, after a wedding or a wake or whatever else they wanted to do, a long week. I mean, just imagine a week-long vacation time for your birthday just because it's your birthday. Then you turn around and it's another holiday a month afterwards. You're like, oh, okay, I'll take another 2 weeks. Why not? You know what? I'll just take this whole month off. I know a lot of other nations in Europe especially, they try and take a lot more time off than we do as well. Guess what? That's why our economy is bigger than theirs. That's why we do better than them. That's why we're a little more secure than they are. Because we work. No, I'm not saying that we need to be the crazy workaholics and work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, let's stop complaining about how long our hours are and let's just get her done. Because you know what? That advances us. Let me tell you something. I work a lot of hours right now. I don't work as many hours as what I used to when I was trying to get into the industry because I knew this is what I wanted to do. I was working for the Colorado Department of Transportation, working on construction projects while going to the broadcasting school at night from 6 to 10 at night, living an hour away from that and driving back and forth while I was interning for a radio station. At the same time, I was getting up at 6 a.m. and coming home at midnight every single day. And I did that for 6 months straight. Why? Because that's what I wanted to do, and I had to work my way to it to be able to get to whatever I needed to get to. That's the dedication you have to put in. Andy, you're working too much. Yeah, well, you know what? It's going to pay off in the end. Because I knew what I wanted to do. I knew the importance of it. And I knew what a work ethic actually was. It's a crazy, wild concept. And something, obviously, the peasants back in the Middle Ages didn't actually understand. And now we're starting to complain that we're not living in luxury as much as we do, or we did, back in the day. This is kind of pathetic, isn't it?
With Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Back into the Voice of Reason, 24 minutes past the hour on a Thursday. It's a pre-Friday celebration. Let's have a little fun. What do you say? Welcome in 317. I can sense it already. Everybody's listening to that last story about the work hours compared to historically what societies have actually worked, and they're saying, man, that'd be really nice. It would be nice. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. But this is another attack on the capitalist system, saying that we are working ourselves to the bone because of capitalism, that the evil corporations are enslaving us, which is not the case in any way, shape, or form. And if you believe that capitalism is enslaving people to work for others and working for the man, then you need to relook up what capitalism actually is and what slavery actually is. You're working, and you put in your time and you do a service. That's why the company hired you, is to provide a service for the company or make a product or to do a service, whatever it may be. And you do that and you get compensated for it. That is not slavery. That is not slavery. That's not even related or even close to slavery. If you weren't getting compensated for it, then that would be a different discussion. If you're forced to show up every single day and you're not getting compensated in any way, shape, or form, and you don't get don't get a wage, you don't get anything from it, that would be slavery. I saw someone make a comment on social media last night about the prisons and the labor that incarcerated individuals sometimes have to go through, and some of the labor, and how we tried to get rid of slavery, and now slavery is back or slavery never really went away, because we would have people incarcerated in prisons actually have to do physical labor. And I stopped and I said, wait, and I thought about this, and I said, wait a second, what's wrong with making people incarcerated do labor? Yeah, the company or whatever, whoever it may be, gets free labor, whether it is working for a business or a company, or whether it's for cleaning up the side of the streets, or whether it's for scratching off graffiti. I saw the story here in Wichita about the graffiti all over the place. That's another discussion that we'll have to have. But how is it slavery? You did something bad. We're punishing you. And you have to actually work and do something to compensate for that, other than staying in prison because you're not a viable person to society, and we don't want you in society to actually, mingle with us because you did something bad and we don't necessarily trust you, and you don't deserve to actually be out in public in that sense until your time is up, and then you've paid your dues, and then you can go on about starting your life. But one of those things that we do is actually, number one, teach you work ethic. Number two is punish you. When you have a child and they do something bad, what do? Go to your room and go clean up your room. You're not allowed to go play until you actually do your homework. You're not allowed to sleep over with your friends until you actually do the dishes. You're not allowed to go outside and play until you actually take the trash out. You're not allowed to do these things until you do the work, because we teach you the work ethic. Is that slavery? Is that child labor? Is that bad? Because nowadays it's being taught that it is. And then these types of stories come out saying, well, look, those peasants in the Middle Ages, they didn't have to work nearly as much. They only worked close to 150 days a year. They had a whole bunch of time off. Great. Look how well that they actually lived compared to what we live like now. That doesn't come free. That comes with a price. This is a ridiculously absurd comparison of trying to say that just because 300-400 years ago, when they had nothing and they lived like poor peasants because they paid everything to the king when they did work and they got a whole lot of time off, guess how they lived? They went to their tiny little hut where animals were walking in and out of it. They didn't have a whole lot of outside latrines or didn't outside porta potties or anything, and they lived very poorly. They died because of diseases. They died because of plagues. They died because they weren't very sanitary. And we're supposed to live like that? We're supposed to live up and look up to a king, to a higher power? We're supposed to just look up to the government and say, oh, government, you let me have some time off. I'm not progressing myself at all, but thank you for letting me have time off so I can be lazy. And I'm not saying that we need to work ourselves to death and work to the bone and be completely workaholics, but at the same time, give me a break. These types of comparisons are bad to society. These types of articles trying to put the bug in your mind that you work way too much and we need to start fighting how many hours we work. Fine, you know what? I guess do that, but don't advance like everybody else. Then when you see everybody else starting new jobs or starting new businesses or succeeding or going really far in life or doing very good things, don't complain that they're ahead of you and that you're stuck behind and you're falling behind. Don't complain to me that way. Let's go to the phones, get your thoughts on this. 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, how are you, sir?
I'm just doing wonderful.
Good.
I'm not a slave.
You're not a slave. That's right. You had the choice on how much you want to work, and if you don't want to work that much, then all the power to you.
More important is not just work. You got to remember, slaves were bought and sold, and their families were bought and sold. You had a wife and a child, or two or three, and if the master of the slave was short of space, didn't need the labor or whatever else, he'd take the family and sell it.
And is the corporation today, the massive corporation, the CEO, the president of that, do they own you and your family? Yeah, do they sell your kids? Do they own you? In prison, because you've done something bad and they actually make you do a little bit of labor, do they own your entire family?
In prison with you.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
These people today, I mean, if you think about it, I'm over 70 years old. I am old enough to remember driving out of Illinois down south and going to Florida to go skin diving when I was 16. And we drove through things, and there were white-only signs, and there was black-only signs, and there were water fountains side by side. One's white, one's black. That's not anymore there.
Different times, right?
People don't even know what it was like. They have watched a movie, and that movie makes them think that, gee, I'm an expert on the farm business.
Exactly.
I'm an expert on slavery.
Jim, I appreciate it. We got to take a break, my friend. I hate to cut you off there, but you're absolutely right. Totally different times, but yet they just don't see it today because they want to be the victim.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Right on! Let's do it! Rock that world! Rock that world!
Give him a call at 721-TALK.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Thursday. Work hard so you can party hard. That's the way, or rest hard, or whatever you like to do. Or you just keep on working hard. I don't really care. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Waking you up better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink as we advance conservatism like no one else. By the way, Speaking of, I received an email last night. I'll talk about that in hour number 2. You may get a kick out of that. But your thoughts this hour. It's open line. See you for hour number 1. 316-721-8255. 316-721. Talking about a half an hour. We'll talk with Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District here in the Wichita area as we talk about the upcoming Farm Bill, the debates on the Farm Bill, and some of the budgetary debates that are going to be happening. I want to shift gears just a little bit, though. As we've talked about guns many times, as you know, I got to be a guest on Armed American Radio, Mark Walter's show, just a couple of days ago as he was talking about some of the legislation here in Kansas, the Carry On Campus that's happening, and some of the debates happening nationwide with the Carry On Campus and some of the other stories. And there's always, of course, it's always going to be in the media. It's not really anything that we can change. But in the media, it's always going to be parading around the people that want to take away the guns and want to repeal the Second Amendment while we try and shut down and silence those that actually try to uphold the Second Amendment. And it's a crazy concept and a weird world to live in, but at the same time, that's, I guess, the reality that we live in right now. We have to accept it. We don't agree with it. We don't like it, but we have to accept it. Oh, I take that back. We have to tolerate it. We don't have to accept it. We have to tolerate it because we can change it. We really can. And I don't want you to think that, well, it's a lost cause because the media is always going to be able to attack the Second Amendment. They will. But you and I are smarter than that to understand that there's more to the Second Amendment than just hunting. We understand that the Second Amendment is completely unknowing to the progressives. They have no idea what the Second Amendment's actually about. We understand that the media is going to try and demonize it the best way that they can, and then they're going to try and hold up and try and brainwash the young generations about the Second Amendment as much as they possibly can. For example, the NAACP. This story came out just a week or so ago out of Detroit. The Detroit NAACP branch will recognize students from about a half dozen Detroit area high schools for their activism, including participation in protests to end gun violence. And notice how they word it. It's not to try and ban firearms, but it's to end gun violence. Now, they work hand in hand, according to the progressives, where ending gun violence is by taking away the gun, which is one of the most absurd opinions that you could possibly have. But at the same time, we understand that because it's the media. And we have to run it through our media filter in our brains as we read this and say, okay, what are they really saying? What are they really trying to say? And that's exactly what they're really trying to say. The Civil Rights Organization will present the honor during the 63rd Annual Fight for Freedom Fund Dinner on May 6th, which just happened. The 63rd Annual Fight for Freedom Fund Dinner. So we're talking about freedom to be able to voice your opinions, express your opinions, fight for what you believe in. But then we forget, of course, about the Second Amendment to fight to defend your rights, as the NAACP honoring students that are wanting to ban guns, take away freedoms, and they're going to be honored at a Fight for Freedom Fund dinner. Students will also present a tribute honoring Reverend Martin Luther King and his work. The dinner is the largest fundraiser by Detroit branch of the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People. The organization says it draws close to 10,000 people each year. I don't know what their turnout was this year, but that was the honor. So that happened in Detroit. Then we see the story here locally, Hat Tip Cake TV on this one, where Andover high school students talk about gun safety in the classroom and about some of the school shootings. And as they make their comments, and I think, you know what, well, let's have the discussion. I love having the discussion and the dialogue, as many of the students talked about, well, not feeling safe, and this could have happened at our school, and what would we do in that situation, and trying to put ourselves in that situation, and it really brings it to light for them, and I'm glad they think about it. I'm really glad that they want to think about some of these issues. What can you do to protect yourself? If you listen to Armed American Radio with Mark Walters, if you listen to myself, if you listen to, or even if you just listen to anything or read books or just have any common sense, you always need to know about your surroundings and your whereabouts, don't you? That's what they always teach, right? Hopefully your parents taught you that, or you're trying to teach your kids or your grandkids about this. When you walk into a venue, when you walk into a building, you scan it. You look for suspicious things or suspicious people. When you sit down, you have your back up against the wall. You're aware of your surroundings, who's around you at all times. It's kind of like when you drive, you're always aware of your surroundings on what vehicles are close to you. If someone creeped up into your blind spot behind you, if someone creeped up and is riding your tail and you get really upset at them because you have road rage, if you are at a concert and people are pushing you around, whatever the case is, if you don't like when you turn around and all of a sudden, poof, there's somebody right there and they kind of startle you, right? You don't want that because you're always aware of your surroundings. And we're not really taught that a whole lot unless the parents are teaching that to their kids nowadays. But the students are now beginning to think that way. One of the students said, now when I walk into the school, I think, what's the nearest exit? Or do I have a plan that I can go through? Or what's going on with my surroundings? That's a good mindset to be in. It's not a paranoia that you live in. It's not a, oh my gosh, everyone's out to get me mentality, but it's the, I want to be safe and secure. Here's my surroundings. Here's the scenario. And I want to have a plan for no matter where I am or no matter what I'm doing. I want to be prepared for what could come. What's wrong with that mentality? That used to be in the, back in the caveman days, that used to be a very smart thing. Nowadays, we've let our guard down because we feel safe. We're still open to natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, crazy weather, lightning strikes, flooding, whatever it may be, and that's out of our control. We need to have a plan for that. There's always going to be the bad guy. No matter how many guns you try and take away, no matter how many government regulations you put in place, there's always going to be someone that says, you know what, you have something that I want. I feel entitled to what you have, and I'm going to try and take it. I'm in a desperate state, and I'm going to try and take it away from you. And they're going to come in, and the way that they do that is they use force and intimidation with a firearm or with some type of weapon. And you need to be on guard with that at all times, no matter what. There's going to be those psychopaths that say, I don't even want anything, I just want to harm people. Because there's those sickos like that too. And you always need to be on that guard. And the fact that this may be in a positive way, I mean, it's still sad that we have to go through all these, but it is a good thing, in my opinion at least, and maybe you disagree with me, but in my opinion, sometimes it takes bad things to happen for the wake-up call. For others to say, wait a second, I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want something to happen to myself. I'm going to start preparing. This is going to be the wake-up call. The light bulbs come on over my head. I need to take care of my family. I need to take care of myself. I need to protect my private property. I know that socialists don't like private property because they think that whatever you have, that I'm entitled to and vice versa, and that we can just share it and just take it away from anybody at any time because they have something that I want and I feel really jealous about that and I feel really envious. So I am kind of the criminal that likes to break in and steal things. I'm just going to do it legally through the government. And I know that they feel that way, and they don't have this whole mindset of understanding what private property actually is, but there is something called private property. There is something called the right to life. There is something called the right to be able to protect yourself no matter what happens, and I know that progressives hate that and despise it with their innermost being. But it's natural for us to want to protect ourselves in any way, shape, or form. And if this is the wake-up call for many high school students to say, wait a second, this could happen at my school. This could happen to me or to my friends or to my teachers. This could happen at any moment. We've seen online threats with social media. We've had prank calls to homes. We've had prank calls to schools. We've had issues to where we've had lockdowns. We've had scary things happen. Hopefully, this would be the wake-up call, because if it is the wake-up call, and put yourselves in that situation, would the student say, you know what, I feel really scared and I need to be aware of my whereabouts and have a plan for whatever may happen, and either I want to keep myself defenseless because I have no way to protect myself if something happens, or this is the wake-up call. If someone walked in with a firearm, whether it was at school, whether it was at home, whether it was at the football field, no matter where it was, or whether it was at the Burger King when I was getting off the playground or whatever the case was, if something happened, how do I protect myself and keep myself safe in that situation? And maybe that light bulb will come on for some and say the only way that I can protect myself from someone with a gun is having a gun myself and learning how to use it and being able to protect myself in that situation. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
Scott, what's happening, sir?
Well, back in the 70s, they had a movie called Breaker Breaker. It starred Chuck Norris in it.
I love Chuck Norris.
And this town that they were talking about, they had established a charter for themselves, and it was based on the criminals there controlling things. You had the criminal mayor, you had criminal judges, you had criminal police. All of them were in basically a gang to take over the city for their own benefit and profit.
Sure.
So now that caused Chuck Norris to come in, and he just happened to be looking for his brother, who they had put in jail illegally, but they were using him to make money and whatnot.
And he had to clean house a little bit.
Yeah, he had to clean up a little bit. And that's what's going on with Sedgwick County. They got a group of people who are running this county, and they need to be investigated federally, because what they've done is they got themselves all ganged up together so that they got a big, what we call a process for their criminal activity so that they can get away with just about anything. And now,
hold on. Now you're referring to like the Sedgwick County Commissioner that's indicted right now?
Well, I'm talking about not just him, but I'm talking about just the whole commission, the city council, the mayor. All of them are in that same gang, with the police, and all of them are a gang of corrupt officials and bureaucrats whose aim is to just profit themselves and terrorize the people. And that's why they had to shoot that man on the porch there, because they had to let people know that, hey, we'll get you if you don't go along with our program.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I don't know if everybody's into it like that, and it's one big conspiracy from the government. Now, I will agree with you on this sense. I will say that the instinct of man or the mentality of man is to always try and gain and try and find a profit somewhere. So that's why in our system of checks and balances in our government that we've always wanted to try and keep government limited, because we don't want that to happen. Is there corruption in our government? Possibly, and more than likely there's probably some going on, and there's an example of that potentially, allegedly, right now with our Sedgwick County Commissioner, Michael O'Donnell. Now, is the entire government, the county government, the city government, everybody into this along with the law enforcement? I don't know if I go that far, and I probably wouldn't agree on that sense. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form that the swatting issue was a sign of saying, hey, you better not step out of line here. We're going to take care of you. I wouldn't go that far. But there's the potential for governments to become very corrupt very easily, which is why, again, we don't give the power to government. We don't give them regulation power, regulatory power, or control over us. We keep them limited so that way we limit that type of corruption from happening. Hey, welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Wrapping up hour number one, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, appreciate everybody hanging out this morning. Lots to get to, lots to talk about coming up in a few minutes. Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District. Again, if you're outside of the Wichita area listening to the show and you want to hear that interview on the Farm Bill and some of the other budgetary debates happening, go to KQAMradio.com. KQAMradio.com. You can find the online streaming for that. Also, if you just want to listen to the podcast after the show, just go to KQAMradio.com. Under the local shows tab, find the Voice of Reason, and you can find the podcast on there along with everything else, our guest lineups and our blog for the day and everything else happening with that. It's a really cool website. Go and check it out. It's been up for a few days now officially, and really proud and excited about that. It's good to have the dialogue as we talk about the Second Amendment and the fact that our local high school students here in the Andover area, just east of Wichita, and some of our local high school students are really thinking about these things, being aware of their surroundings, looking to defend themselves, looking to find ways to say, hey, this could happen. I don't live in a bubble. I don't live in a perfect little world to where nothing will ever happen to me. This is real life, and real life is scary, and real life could be taken away just like that at any instant. And that's one of the scariest things that we could have. So protect yourself, be aware of it, and actually go about your day. Looking over your shoulder, not being paranoid your entire life, but at the same time, being defensive and knowing that you feel a little more secure because of that. So that's good news. At least we're having that discussion on the local front with our young generation. Big news of the day. This one came out as of yesterday. We can go ahead and play this. As of yesterday afternoon, according to the local news, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Mr. Jim Ward drops out of the gubernatorial race. Since announcing my run for governor in August, you have been dedicated champions for me and my vision for a better Kansas. It's been a wonderful journey getting out across the state and interacting with you, listening to your ideas, sharing stories about our love for the state, and committing to ways we can use our energy to grow the economy and give all Kansans a fair shot at the American dream. That's what makes today bittersweet. I have decided to suspend my campaign for governor and file for re-election for the Kansas House of Representatives for District number 86. As the Democratic leader of the Kansas House, I know how critical it is to have Democratic voices representing Kansans. This past session demonstrated that if we want good jobs, strong schools, and affordable health care, non-discriminatory policies for our LGBTQ community and friends, and protection for working Kansans, it takes more of our votes. My voice is not leaving Kansas politics. Our energy is not dissipating. I look forward to continuing to work with each of you. While I won't be asking for your vote for governor, I will continue to ask for your support, input, and participation in our democracy. We don't have a democracy, but okay. We have dozens of House campaigns. We welcome your help on. There are talented men and women running for office, and we must support them. I hope you'll join me in elevating their efforts. And for those of you who have considered a run for office yourself, there's still time to file. Together we can and will continue to move our great state forward. The stakes in Kansas are simply too high to give up the fight. Forward, Jim. That's State Representative Jim Ward suspending his campaign for the gubernatorial race, knocking one down. Now, I said this was going to be one of the more heated Democratic gubernatorial races because this is really the first time that we've had a primary for the Democrats in 2 decades when it comes to the governorship. So I'm a little shocked because I thought he was going to be one of the more potential type candidates running for the governorship in the Democrat side and dropping out early. So this one actually shook me a little bit. This one surprised me a bit. We have Laura Kelly that I believe is gaining some traction. We have Josh Schwady that is going to be getting some more traction, I believe, as well. And it's really come down to those two. Carl Brewer, former mayor of Wichita. I personally don't think he's I don't know. I don't know much about the campaign. I don't know how much he's been out there. I don't know where the polling numbers look like for the Democratic side. I just haven't heard as much talk about him on the streets. So I don't know where they're at. Maybe he does have a good chance. I don't know. And I want to start getting them in because we've talked to all the Republican candidates. I do want to start talking to some of the Democratic candidates on the show and get their take on the race and what's going to happen. But right now, it seems like, in my opinion, it's really come down to Laura Kelly and to Josh Schwady and see where they actually come out in the end. But Jim Ward, kind of a shocker on my front, maybe not to you, but I thought that he would have a decent chance running and he'd be in a lot longer than he did. But dropping out, still wanting to stay in the House of Representatives and trying to fight that fight from Congress. I know that he is a very loud voice when it comes to the progressive movement on the Democratic side, and he really enjoys being in the House, so he's going to continue the fight there. So that's the big news of the day right now. Another candidate for the gubernatorial race dropping out, going away, bowing out. We'll see where this one goes. The primaries are right around the corner. Well, we will be focusing on those pretty staunchly in the next coming weeks here on the program. Hour number 2 coming up. Lots to get to today. Your thoughts and calls as well. When we come back, Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District. This is The Voice of Reason on a Thursday. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
5 states last night had their primaries, and the blue wave is not happening. The excitement, the activism, and right now the Republicans would have been able to maintain every single one of their seats in the 5 states, whether it was a House seat, whether it was a Senate seat, or whether it was the governorship or anything else locally that may have happened in those states. Republicans would have maintained every single one of them. Where's the blue wave, baby? Where is it? We're not seeing it.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome in. What's happening on a Thursday, the pre-Friday celebration, as we are rolling right along. We are waking up. We're Carpe Diem all over this place, baby. We're going to have to clean it up with a mop. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We have lots to get to. Coming up in hour number 3, we're going to do part 1. We're going to have 2 or 3 parts of this, but part 1 of our state legislative recap with State Representatives John Whitmer and Chuck Weber. They'll be joining us in studio for the entire 8 a.m. hour as we start talking about what happened in this session, the good, the bad, the indifferent, and what to look forward to going into the election cycle this year. But now I'm really excited to have on. He is one of our favorite guests to have on to chat about what's happening in Washington, D.C. He is the representative for the 4th Congressional District here, Congressman Ron Estes on the line with us. Congressman, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Andy?
Hey, we're living the dream. More fun every single day. What's it looking like out in D.C.? We got some nice rain last night. Everything's looking really green and pretty. What's been kind of the weather out there in Washington?
Well, it's actually starting to warm up, but and actually starting to get a little humid here. When you think about D.C., we may go straight from winter to the start of summer.
No joy.
That's not necessarily a good time you want to be in D.C.
Well, it's probably from all the weird fumes of all the bureaucrats up there that just kind of have that smog over it, or the smug, and it just kind of keeps all the humidity right there. So I don't envy you on that front.
Yeah, there does seem to be a lot of hot air here.
That is very true. One of the big issues, and I wanted to bring you on to talk about some of the details about this. I know many of our listeners are very interested in it, but this is the year where we start discussing the Farm Bill 2018, and there's been a lot of hubbub about it this year as we're trying to maybe weed out and cut out some of the fat in there, maybe try and cut or reform some of the social programs in there, some of the details on crop insurance or on the farm, on the farmers themselves. But from your perspective, what's been the latest discussion that you've heard when it comes to the Farm Bill for 2018?
Yeah, we have a Farm Bill reauthorization every 5 years, and it actually kind of calling it Farm Bill is a bit of a misnomer because 80% of it deals with food stamps. So, almost ought to call it Farm Bill and Food Stamp Bill. But we really, we want to provide that safety net for the farmers so that, when there's issues with drought, it doesn't turn into a FEMA issue, but it provides good crop insurance as a good backstop for our farming community, and also provide some good things like, over $1.1 billion for rural broadband, and help strengthen some of the programs like cotton had its own special program. Now that's being pulled into Title I. Same with dairy. Kind of streamline and make it a little bit more efficient. But part of the thing that I'm most excited about it is that on that food stamp side, that piece that deals with these quote-unquote entitlements, is that we're proposing, and we want to get through the House, to have work requirements. Now, that's something that Kansas and one or two other states like Maine have done with some of their programs, but we want to make that nationwide, and require that if you're getting food stamps, if you're between the ages of 18 and 59, if you're not disabled, and if you're not taking care of a child under 6 years old, that you at least ought to put some work effort in to the assistance you're getting. And the way the program is set up is that 20 hours of work a week to be able to do that, or in lieu of that, have the being involved in some work-related education activities. Our whole intent is, we want to provide the backstop for people that temporarily need assistance, and we want to make sure that they have the best tools available so that they can get on with their life and get their career started and help provide for themselves and their family.
It is a crazy, wild, out-of-this-world, insane concept to want to actually have people work a little bit to be able to receive some of the benefits. And 20 hours a week isn't very much, but I'm sure that you guys are getting heat and attacks from the left and right, wanting to come after you and saying, how dare you actually want to make these people have a minimum 20-hour work requirement to be able to receive some of these benefits?
It really is. I mean, that's part of one of the sad things in politics now. So many people demagogue things. And let's take a step back and think about, Americans are kind-hearted. We want to help people that, are downtrodden or through no fault of their own are having issues. But we also have an expectation that, particularly, if you're getting subsistence of some sort, that you do get engaged in improving yourself, engaged in work. We know at the end of the day, you'll end up with more money if you have a job on your own. And so we want to help people do that. And so that's built into the Farm Bill. I also introduced a HOPE Act for trying to provide some of these provisions. Actually introduced it before the Farm Bill went to the committee, and basically was just trying to bring up some of these great provisions that Kansas was doing, eliminating some of the things out there like the broad-based eligibility. So I don't know if you knew it, but in some states, if you just apply for a brochure about TANF, that you can automatically be entitled to be enrolled in food stamps. silly stuff like that that's out there. We need to make sure that the funds that we want to help people with actually get to the people that really need it, and that there is some expectation on the part of people receiving assistance to to work to take care of themselves, take care of their family, and ultimately, ideally, work themselves off of assistance and better their own lives.
Sure. The media is reporting that if we do these type of work requirements, that it could cut close to 2 million people off of the program, and that they'd be living on the streets and dying in the streets and dying under bridges and that sort of thing. The question is, how many people would be potentially affected if we put a work requirement in, and how much money could we potentially be saving from some of these social programs that would be a good start to beginning to reform some of these programs?
Yeah. Well, there's 6 million people right now between the ages of 18 and 59 that able-bodied, work-capable individuals that aren't working, and so we think, and at the same time, we have jobs that are open, and we need people to fill those jobs. And so, as the economy continues to grow, we want to make sure that people have the thought process that, hey, I'm getting this assistance right now, but I need to get into a job so I can help make myself better, make my family better off.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a step closer, and I think that we're in the right way to actually make that happen. So if we do end up seeing people go back to work, not only would that help the economy and boost the economy, but then we're going to see the downtick in some of the people needing the social program. Hopefully, the price of the social program would go down. I know that every time that we talk about not even cutting some of these social programs, but just slowing the growth of some of these, then everybody freaks out and panics because how dare we actually do this major cut of a 1% slowing of the growth? But if less people are using it, then why do we need so much money going into the program, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, it's actually a win-win situation from the standpoint of people working, bringing more income to themselves, also having been able to pay taxes for the income that they bring in, and being able to draw less on the subsistence, so that that costs less, and ultimately it ends up helping us balance our budget. Because that's a huge issue right now that we've got with the federal government, is that we're $21 trillion in debt, and we've got to rein in the spending, out of control spending, more so than the revenue we've got coming in.
Sure. Here's the question. I know you guys are working on this on the House side, and I think it has the potential to go through. The House seems to be a little more active in actually getting some productive legislation out. Do you think that it can go through the Senate? I know some Republicans even come out and said, yeah, no, we don't like the fact that we're going to cut some of this or put work requirements in. Do you see this actually getting to the president's desk? Because I know he'd sign it if it gets there, but it's just getting it to him is going to be the big obstacle.
Well, I know Senator Roberts has been working really hard on the Farm Bill on the Senate side. I don't know enough about what the provisions that the senators are talking back and forth. I know part of the discussion is I think they're partly waiting to see what provisions come out of the House, so that they don't necessarily have to take a stand until they see what comes from the House chamber to actually move this forward. And I'm optimistic. I do know it's going to be a struggle to get enough Senate votes. We've seen over and over again the last couple of years the Senate's just been slow and or obstructing things. I mean, we had the whole Schumer shutdown around running our government just because they wanted to stop the process.
Sure. Very good. We're talking with Congressman Ron Estes, 4th Congressional District. We got a few minutes left. I know that you got to run here in a bit, but I do want to ask you as well, as we're talking about the social programs, reforming, cutting spending, and trying to get our budget under control somewhat. President Trump came out with his announcement saying that he wants to cut close to $15 billion in a Trump rescission proposal, and many of that coming from the CHIP program and some of the other social programs. Of course, as usual, the progressives freak out and panic and say that we're going to have kids and parents dying out in the streets and so on and so forth. But we have a huge opportunity right now, as we've talked about before, with the appropriations process that's going to begin very soon, as well as just the budget that Trump's proposing with a lot of these cuts. Do we see some good opportunity and some good movement on these discussions?
Oh, this is a great idea. I was one of the first members to call for recession, that we need to keep moving forward in that process. It used to be common practice back when President Carter and President Reagan and President Bush and President Clinton, they did hundreds of rescissions during their term. And basically what a rescission is it cuts out a program that's not being used, or money that's parked in an account somewhere that either is not available to spend because the need's gone away or the appropriation process has gone away. And so the $15 billion that President Trump's proposed, it consists of things like an energy program that hasn't been used since 2011. It has money from the stimulus program way back after the recession in 2008. The CHIP program that a lot of people are being demagogues about, the Children's Health Program. We just reauthorized the Children's Health Program for 10 years, longest extension ever having that program. That program's funded, ready to move forward. The money that the President's going to strike with the rescission is money that was set aside in the original version of the previous version of the program. The authority to spend it has expired, so it's not needed. I mean, it's just sitting over there as an authority to spend or sitting in an account, and we don't need it. So all of these people that are crying that it's going to take money away from the intended recipients is just wrong. We've got a program that's working, fully funded, and we need to clean up our act and make sure that we get some of this wild spending under control.
Boy,
it's
how
a
true
small
is that?
step, but it's a starting step. It's a small one, but we got to do more of this.
Well, and you got to start with baby steps. We can't just get all of it right off the bat and just expect it to actually work. We got to do this in small steps. We got to do it in the long term. We got to chip away at it little by little. We have a lot of issues at the federal level, and it's going to take a long time to get this back under control. And this is the way we actually start it. And I tell you what, Congressman, if we are able to implement this, and Republicans are able to get this through in both chambers, and we're able to see some of the spending get cut, and President Trump make this happen, I see a huge red wave of Republicans coming back into Congress in the midterm elections, and a very good shot of President Trump, with his election coming up in a few years. And I know it's not about just the elections, but we're going to reinstate a lot of faith into the conservative values that we got elected on, and many people got elected on, yourself included, of that we're actually doing something. We're seeing productivity, and we're seeing some of the spending get cut.
Yeah, that's the important thing, is that we're seeing so much progress now with the regulatory reform that's happened, with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We're seeing the economy take off, and it's such a beneficial thing for all of us as individuals. Helps with our federal tax revenue, and it's something we just need to continue pushing. And the Democrats have already said if they take over, they're going to change things. They're going to go back to increase taxes and bring the regulations back. And we don't need to go back to the slow Obama economic policies that we had, where few jobs were developed and slow economic growth.
Not at all. Congressman Ron Estes, we're seeing good growth, we're seeing great opportunity, and we're seeing the productivity that we haven't seen in a long time, and we love it, and we want to continue to see that, and we love everything that you're doing up there that's contributing and helping to that. So thank you what you're doing. Keep up the good fight, my friend. We look forward to chatting with you again real soon.
All right, great. Thank you, Andy. Have a good day.
Hey, always a good time. Congressman Ron Estes from the 4th Congressional District. Let's take a break. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. 21 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Back into the Voice of Reason. What's happening? It's a Thursday morning. Great to have you along. Thanks again to Congressman Ron Estes joining the program in the last segment, talking about the Farm Bill. Isn't it pathetic that we call it a Farm Bill when 80% of the budget of the Farm Bill goes towards food stamps and social programs? And then if you vote against it, then you hate farmers. It's absolutely absurd. 316-721-8255. Lines are lighting up. Let's go to them, shall we? Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Morning, it's Deacon.
Deacon, what's happening, sir?
Oh, it's a beautiful day out here, brother.
Hey, living the dream every day.
Every day. Hey, I just wanted to say, when I moved out here about 10 years ago, from North Carolina to Kansas, my wife was 7 months pregnant and having a real hard time.
Sure.
So she couldn't work, and I was new to the area, didn't know anything, so I found a job at McDonald's.
Sure.
And we were on food stamps until I found a job with a municipality as a trash man.
Mm-hmm.
And just as soon as I got to where I could pay my bills, I went in and I was like, hey, thanks a lot for the help. Here's your card back. We're good now.
Sure.
And they're like, no, you still qualify. I'm like, how do I still qualify? I don't have that many bills. I was living with my mother-in-law at the time. Don't have that many bills. I don't need $800 a month for groceries. And so I was like, just take it. And
they were probably dumbfounded. They didn't know what to say, did they?
No, it really didn't. It's like they'd never had anybody come in and give them a card back before or something. I don't get it. And then a couple of years ago, when they were trying to pass that work visas for illegals here in Kansas,
sure,
I called the Department of Agriculture here in Kansas, and I was like, hey, I got a great idea. Instead of paying people to sit on their butts, why don't you get them working on the farms, and we don't have to have illegals here working on the farms, and we don't have such a high drain on the tax dollars for people who are able to work. And they told me that food stamps had nothing to do with the farming. So I'm lost here. I don't understand. How is it part of a farm bill when it has nothing to do with the Department of Agriculture?
It's a great point. Great point. Because they like to say that the Department of Agriculture has anything related to food, whether it's actually the farmers harvesting it and growing it, or whether it's actually us consuming it, or whether it's even a lot of the trade going with commodities going to other nations, that all falls under to them, the Department of Agriculture, and that they're the ones that get to regulate that. So you're right. So we have a farm bill that's 80% food stamps and very little on the actual crop insurance, or actually very little on taking care of the actual farmer. And then when you actually want to apply the workforce to people working in the agricultural industry, instead of being on food stamps, oh, sorry, they don't have anything to do with one another. That's completely, totally unrelated. And how dare you even try and make that comparison? But that's how we get our funding, by the way. It's it really, again, shows the irony between the two, to where we fund it. And when you vote against it, saying, wait a second, we don't need this many food stamps, then they turn around and say, well, yeah, but if you vote against the farm bill because of food stamps, then you hate farmers because that's how they get their little money too.
And you've got people living off the dole who are physically able to work, but they don't want to be a trash man.
Sure. No, you're right. Deacon, I appreciate it, my friend. You're absolutely right. I mean, hey, you still qualify. You still got some time left. You better utilize that one. I don't need it anymore. It's a program that's supposed to help you out temporarily, not make you dependent on it just because you can extend that for as long as you want to. Got some more calls on the line. Don't go anywhere. We'll get to you as soon as we come back right after the bottom of the hour break. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
We just increased education funding last year, $400 million over the next 2 years. That's not enough. They wanted $1 billion. So what do? They compensate by now coming out with a new lawsuit, or continuing the lawsuit, asking for an additional $600 million.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
What's happening? Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Thursday, the pre-Friday celebration. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink, just by tuning in to the right dial on your radio. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We do have a caller that's waited over the break. Let's get right to you. Caller line number 3. Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Going once. Going twice. I scared them away. My goodness.
What is this Riverside Cafe?
Riverside.
That the big, deep
That's right.
voice was speaking of.
That's right. This portion of The Voice Reason brought to you by Riverside Cafe. 3 locations, 2 in Wichita, 1 in Derby, 9125 West Central Avenue. In Wichita, 739 West 13th Street, and 824 North Baltimore Avenue in Derby. We have, before the end of this segment's all said and done, it is Thursday, we have you, my friends, a complimentary burger and fries. I have still yet, and I'm going to do this in the next week or two.
Oh, yeah, you've been saying that for 2 years.
I will be trying this in the next week or two, the 3-pound burger that Riverside Cafe has. I am so looking forward to trying that. It's going to be, maybe we should do like a man versus food. And we should try it with the 3-pound burger with a shake and a big pile of fries or something and see if we can make this happen. I'm ready. I have been training and prepping for this for a long time.
Okay, so, I don't mean to see your little dream there on the sidewalk and squish it like a bug.
Hey, now.
But if you're going to set your sights on a 3-pound burger, you might want to dispense with the fries and shake.
No. See, that's the whole point of the man versus food is you have to be able to get it all down. I'm going to do this. It's going to happen. We're going to try it out. Riverside Cafe. Check them out. 3 locations, 2 in Wichita, one in Derby. We'll have a complimentary burger and fries before the end of this segment. So get ready for that one.
I'm laughing right now because of last week when you had me in here.
What?
And you were having me review clips with you from Chef Gordon Ramsay.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, we were getting ready, which I'm glad you brought that up because it was for our cookbook promotion. It's the first annual KQAM KGSO cookbook, and we want you. And I've been thinking of some recipes that I'm going to submit, which is going to be great.
I think it's one per customer, dude.
Allegedly. I could do it under false names.
Way to skirt the system.
There's no way for them to verify. It's not like Chris Kobach with my voter registration or anything.
Ooh, ding, 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 ding.
See, there we go. But we want you, if you have a recipe, whether it's a dessert, whether it's a dinner, it is barbecue season. We want you to submit some recipes for us. It's the first annual KQAM KGSO cookbook. And by the way, when you do submit a recipe, you get your name into a drawing for a brand spanking new pellet grill from Wichita Tractor. You can visit them, wichitatractor.com. All you got to do is submit your recipe at recipe@kqamradio.com. Email it recipe@kqamradio.com.
For me as an OG/old guy, okay, when I hear of pellet grills, right?
To me, like a pellet heater kind of thing?
Well, there's those too, but when I think of a pellet grill, to me that's like the newest and newfangled, right? Because I've never had one.
Sure, that is kind of cool. I've never heard of a pellet grill either. So,
it's awesome. The pellets you can buy, you can get pellets with different flavored smoke.
Ooh, there you go.
So like you can get.
So it's just like being able to do it with different types of wood with a wood burning kind of thing. Yeah,
but much more precise. I mean,
exactly.
This is down to a science.
I love it.
So when they talk about giving away a pellet grill,
come on.
Pick me.
That's
pick
right.
Me. And Wichita Tractor, of course, they don't play, so you know it's the best of the best.
It's going to be high quality. Your brand new pellet grill, you get a chance to get your name into the drawing. All you got to do is submit a recipe, whether it's a dinner, dessert, breakfast, drinks. I got a couple drink recipes I may be submitting.
I bet you do.
I bet I do. All you got to do, email it, recipe@kqamradio.com. You can also get more information on our brand new spanking website, kqamradio.com, and you can get all the details right there.
So I'm wondering, like, when you think of someone like Paul Comia, okay?
Yes.
The guy owns Riverside Cafe, all 3 locations. When you're thinking about you go to him for a recipe, what does a guy that owns a restaurant have a favorite for? I mean, yeah, they got the stuff they cook every day and everything like that. But
there's always that baby. Everybody's got their one baby that they love. And
what is yours? I mean, not to give away the secrets of it or anything, but what's your favorite recipe?
My favorite, I don't know. I'd have to think on that. I'd have to break it down into styles of food. Am I talking like
I'm only
Mexican
asking
food?
for one.
Am I
Don't
talking for burgers?
Things.
Am I talking for there
You're
are way
being
too many.
democratic.
There are way
I asked
too many.
you what the hell your favorite recipe is. Is that tough?
See, it is. That's way too tough. One, I can't. Look, I
know
don't
mine.
know if you notice or not, but I like food.
I know mine. It's my mom's beef stroganoff.
Oh, see, there you go.
And I still have the recipe in a copy written in her handwriting. Rest her soul.
Very good.
So her beef stroganoff rocks. And even though I get it really close, like super duper close, it's still not mom's.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, my wife makes some heck of a good massive meals. No matter, I got to say, maybe, I can't narrow it down to one, but she makes some really good stuff like the corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day. I mean, we eat it throughout the rest of the year too, but I mean, that's something you just can't get any better of. So yeah. If you have your recipe, email it, recipe@kqamradio.com. Get your name into the drawing for a brand new pellet grill from Wichita Tractor. I want to read you an email that I received last night.
Okay.
At about 10 o'clock last night.
Fan mail?
Kinda. Now, anybody is open to emailing me, and I get a lot of emails from a lot of listeners on a daily basis, and I read some, and sometimes I don't read them just because there's no reason to. But
wait, now you said we were giving away a Riverside Cafe
we will,
burger.
in just a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, in a bit here.
I'm going to patiently wait.
Yes, got to patiently wait for that one. I mean, come on, we got to build up the anticipation a little bit. But I got an email last night, and you can email me, Andy@kqamradio.com as well, and email me different show topics or opinions of the show or whatever you think. even if you want to call me a jerk, which this one kind of took it to the little extreme on that one. But this is an email that I received last night at about 9:45, 10 o'clock. Probably, I'm guessing, maybe some substances involved as the writing of this was being done.
Now
I don't know.
You're speculating. And you
I am
shouldn't do that.
speculating, but it was emailed to me along with about 20 elected officials, state house members, Congressman Ron Estes was included in this email as a CC'd
Whoa, they took it to
email
the
address.
U.S. Congress?
They emailed Senator Pat Roberts into this one as
Oh, my
well.
word.
But it was directed towards me. It was just directed, but they attached all these other individuals, including, by the way, the Democratic Party nationally and statewide were included into this email as it was directed towards me with the high importance on this email. So it comes up with a little red flag that says extremely important.
Okay.
So I got this email and I got to read it because this is fantastic. And since it kind of goes off on the entertainment side, I guess we could make it our...
It's your Pinko Flaming Commie Corner.
There we go. All right. So here's the email and here's what I had to say. And God bless you. I love you. And I'm glad you emailed this to me because as you mentioned, and I've had this kind of thrown at me kind of nonchalantly, subliminally throughout about how this is not necessarily a intellectual, substantial show, but more of an entertainment show. Which in radio, you got to have both.
It's kind of a mix.
It's a mix because people don't like just dry, boring stuff, so you got to do it entertaining-wise. But here's what the email says. Hi, Andy. And then in parentheses, a.k.a. Alex Jones.
Ooh.
Because I don't know if that's a compliment because he's very successful or if that's a knock because he's a conspiratorial kind of guy.
I'd assume it's probably the latter.
Oh, okay. But here's what it says. Hi, Andy, a.k.a. Alex Jones. I'm not sure how to say this, so I'm just going to come out with it.
No, now I read the email. It does not say with. It says wit.
A wit. It comes out. I'm just going to come out with it. Yes. By the reason I brought you in here is because I think he references you in here as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there you go. Believe me, I can understand how you can create entertainment from politics. The whole nice little jab at the entertainment. Now, look, this hopefully is an entertaining show. Mm-hmm. I would like to assume it is.
Factually based,
but with an entertainment spin, so that way it keeps your attention for, the amount of time that we talk about issues. So, believe me, I can understand how you can create entertainment from politics. But I find it damaging to our governance. Now I think it's another typo. Governance.
Oh, governance.
Governance. Yes.
Okay.
Now
I didn't know you could slur when you type.
Governance. Governance.
That's a new one.
Yeah, that's a new one. Now I think there's another typo in here. I think it's now I see your journalist has joined in, meaning you, I think. Either that or he's considering me a journalist, which I am not a journalist.
Oh, my land's sakes.
Yeah.
How dare I be roped in?
How dare you be roped into my shenanigans of Alex Jones-style conspiracies? And for the sake of all for the sake of the almighty dollar. Your folks are prime examples of...
Like we're making tons of those.
That's funny. Well done. Yeah, we're rolling in it, baby. I tell you what, your folks are prime examples of Reagan's corporate welfare queen. Before Reagan, I learned about conservatism growing up watching All in the Family. That's his intelligence level of understanding conservatism. I beg of you to stop your mission to dumb down our constituency before our governance is completely destroyed.
Okie dokie.
Sincerely, and I'm not going to give the name of the listener because, I respect privacy.
Yeah.
There it is. So, you're not getting any substance in the
where
show.
The listener's from? Is he from Sedgwick County? Is he from Johnson County?
From Wichita.
From Wichita.
From Wichita, okay. Yes. So there it is. It's, for the sake of the almighty dollar, stop your entertainment extracting from politics. You're damaging our governance, and it's all for the almighty dollar. And we're examples of Reagan's corporate welfare queen, and that you understood conservatism by watching All in the Family.
Okay.
So there you have it. I guess that's... Yeah.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller played
songs that made the hit parade.
Guys like us, we had it made.
Those were the days.
And you knew where you were then. Girls were girls and men were men.
Mister, we could use that bed like Herbert Hoover again.
I didn't know you could get that high.
No welfare state.
Everybody pulled his weight.
G.R.O. LaSalle and great. Those were the days.
There you go. That was your intelligence level of understanding conservatism. Well done, my friend. But apparently we are the... now, look. There's a few things to this. First off, as I mentioned, the entertainment and the politics. Because, well, I mean, heck. I mean, you got to make it entertaining.
Don't forget the burger.
I'm not forgetting the burger. Don't you worry.
My gosh. Well, you got me hungry over
Anticipation
here.
building here a little bit. That's right. Yeah. There you go. Lost my train of thought. Thank you.
Choo-choo.
The email from our friends who, again, I'm not going to say the name, but I love the dialogue and I appreciate the input on the corporate welfare greed from Reagan-esque type economics and the lack of understanding from conservatism. Appreciate it very much. 316-721-8255. I want to take a phone call here and then we'll get to our complimentary burger and fry from Riverside Cafe. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
Hearing Congressman Estes talking about, did I hear him right? That there's like about $15 billion that they don't know what to do with?
Well, President Trump had advocated for cutting $15 billion out of the budget through a rescission proposal, which, as he had mentioned, many presidents had done in the past, to where if there's money sitting in an account of certain agencies and departments and it's not being used, then they can go back into the budget and they have the authority to cut it out of the budget. So that way it's not just sitting there and we're not funding things that don't necessarily need to be funded to that level. And we're seeing that with the CHIP program. We're seeing that with some of the social programs. We're seeing that across the board. And Trump is advocating for $15 billion in cuts, and people are freaking out about it. So, yes, we have right now close to $15 billion that we could be cutting. It's fractionally compared to the entire federal budget is minuscule and is, I don't even know if it's 1%, but at the same time, it's a start. And if we're not using it, then why the heck not try and trim it out?
Well, you were talking about earlier about slavery.
Yes.
Well, in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 7, it says that the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant or slave to the lender. So our government has made us all slaves to the debt that they put us into.
Oh, absolutely. They enslave us every single day when it comes to debt, and it's a whole new way of servitude by saying, hey, you know what? You can't pay your bills, just work a little bit more, and oh, by the way, we'll give you some more free goodies so that way we can control you as we do that. Helen, I appreciate the call very much. It is time, my friends, for our complimentary burger and fries Riverside Cafe. 3 locations, 2 in Wichita, 1 in Derby. And Rick, we're going to play a new game today, and that's another reason why I wanted to bring you in, is it's going to be called Stump the Newsman.
Oh, my. Okay.
Are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
As ready as you'll ever be. So here's how the game actually works, and I guess we can start off with the theme song until we get into the fun game. Here's how it works. We're going to ask Rick a question. If he gets it right, then he gets to decide what color number we take to be able to win the complimentary burger and fries. If you get it wrong, then we'll try something else. Because that's just the way we work. We still want to give it away, so we'll just have to make it a little bit easier. So here's the question of the day. I figured since we played the All in the Family theme song that we should stick with the same kind of theme. You have to guess the name of the show from hearing their theme song.
Oh, okay.
Can you do that?
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. And this one should be easy because I've talked about this one many times before, so we're going to start it off as an easy one this year. But here is the song. If you guess it right, then you get to guess the caller number and what we get to take. Come on. You should know it by now. Come on.
Oh, my gosh. Is it a police show?
No.
It's a family show?
Yes, it is a family show.
Is it like Family Ties?
No.
Oh, I got to think of stuff.
I mean, it's a family-friendly show. It's not a family show. It's a family-friendly show.
Family-friendly show.
Welcome back in, wrapping up hour number 2. Appreciate all the phone calls. I can't believe that he didn't get that. I don't know, maybe I'm a dork because I just enjoy those kind of shows, but nonetheless, that was fun. Anyways, we'll do another one next Thursday, brought to you by Riverside Cafe. When we come back, hour number 3, part 1 of our legislative recap 2018. State Representatives Chuck Weber, John Whitmer, both going to be in studio for the hour. Going to be a lot of fun talking about this session, what went right, what went wrong, and what we can do from here on out. Plus, send me some more emails. I'll keep you confidential, but I had to read that one because that one was just entertaining nonetheless. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up. Stay here.
Speak.
It's time for Reason.
5 states last night had their primaries, and the blue wave is not happening. The excitement, the activism, and right now the Republicans would have been able to maintain every single one of their seats in the 5 states, whether it was a House seat, whether it was a Senate seat, or whether it was the governorship or anything else locally that may have happened in those states. Republicans would have maintained every single one of them. Where's the blue wave, baby? Where is it? We're not seeing it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about.
Don't get fooled again.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. What's up? Happy Thursday. It's a pre-Friday celebration. 8 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I try and stay up. Oh, by the way, the Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well, which you can view and you can check out. We've had, I don't know, I think it's the Facebook algorithms. They just don't like us. And we had a couple really good days, then it's been kind of really low the last few days. So go on there, facebook.com/1480 KQAM. You can like it, share it onto your own page, leave a comment, ask a question. Let's blow it up. Let's get the algorithm going so that way people can actually see it and view it. That way, I try and stay optimistic. As you know, I'm an optimistic kind of guy.
Andy's optimism of the day.
All right, I'm ready.
And that's the way I try and roll, is that I'm just an optimistic kind of guy. I always look at the bright side, the sunny side, the glass half full kind of thing, even when I get, hateful emails and it just hurts my feelings and I probably need some therapy thereafter and go into my safe space. However, this session was an interesting legislative session. This is going to be part 1. We may do 2 or 3 of these. One more for sure on Monday, where we have a few more legislators coming in studio, but maybe a third one depending. But it was a very interesting session to where obviously it is a midterm election. We're going into an election cycle. But what did we do? What did we do? And that's the big question. So in studio to talk about that, after the 4 months, whatever it was, of hanging out in the odd place that is called Topeka, we have 2 state representatives with us here, John Whitmer, Chuck Weber. John, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning
Thanks for
to
having
you.
us.
Chuck Weber, good morning, sir.
Hey, Andy, I have to say right off the top, you brought me on with my roommate, John Whitmer. Can I get a word in edgewise today?
Is that
going to be possible?
Roomies, man.
We are. We share a suite at the resort in Topeka.
I had no idea. So this works out perfectly, right?
Oh, yeah, and we miss that room so much.
That's right. Miss the room so much.
I mean, we have a fire station right outside our window.
and a train.
And a rail yard. Yeah, so it's beautiful, folks.
So every time you're trying to get sleep after then you just hear the rattling, which you don't know whether it's the hot air from the progressives or the train that's going by.
The lap of luxury, it is not, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Great to be here.
Well, I appreciate you coming out. I think this is the second time we've had you in studio, right?
I haven't been here before.
Oh, you haven't been here? Okay.
With you
just over the phone.
Just
over the phone. Well, great. Well, welcome into the studio. We love having you here. This session, and I wrote about this, by the way, our new website is KQAMradio.com. Under the local shows tab, you can find the voice reason. And I did a little blurb on the website of kind of a recap of this session. And after the 4 months, the question is, other than increasing some spending and focusing on education, what did we do?
Well, I mean,
that's the question.
Let me start with one positive. And this really probably didn't get a whole lot of play in the Wichita market, but we did pass the Adoption Protection Act. So for social conservatives, I mean, thank you. I mean, that was a knockdown, drag out. Katie barred the door. I've never been called so many names before. I thought I was a pretty nice guy, once you get to know me. And so that I want to start with a positive because, kudos to our colleague Representative Susan Humphreys for getting that passed. And I understand that the governor is going to come to town perhaps this weekend and sign that. So let's start with the positive, the Adoption Protection Act. We can talk about the details of that later on if you'd like. But that was a good thing.
I do want to. And here's what I said, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I had 4 points of good news on this one. And number one was the adoption protection. And that was a great success that we had. Number two was stopping the expansion of Medicaid. It's not necessarily advancing anything, but we blocked an agenda that was trying to be pushed. And it pushed numerous times. What was it? Tried to on the floor 5, 6 times?
Too many to count. It was,
Yeah. 3 or 4 really serious shots at it.
Some really serious shots. Number 3 was stopping some anti-Second Amendment legislation that tried to go through as well.
Yep.
Along with number 4 I had is a minor potential tax reform of being able to, which I guess it didn't even happen, did it? With the being able to write off and itemize your taxes as we do at the federal level. So
the Senate passed it, the House failed.
The House failed to pass it. So those are the 4 things that I really saw as somewhat productivity. Was that about right, or did I miss some stuff?
No, I mean,
now I can buy liquor at 6 a.m., so I feel happy about that.
Yes, and we criminalized swatting, which, that was my bill. So it was, but at the same time, no, I think the bulk of our duty this session was damage control and just trying to stop stuff from happening. Sadly, we failed, in my opinion, at probably our second most important task. I think the adoption protection was pretty important.
Sure.
But for me, trying to, people don't understand what the windfall is. They think this is, now the state's getting the windfall. That's what's going to happen. Kansas taxpayers, their taxes are going up, and the state of Kansas gets that money now so they can spend it.
Sure.
And so we failed in that regard. And we tried, but
we couldn't do it. And there's the bad news. I had 3 points of bad news that I want to get into. And you're here for the entire hour, which I appreciate as well. The phones are open if you want to ask a question or leave a comment. 316-721-8255. And we can talk to the two state representatives here. But let's get into some of the details of some of the bad news. And I put number 1 right off the bat, the state budget with over $7.07 billion in spending and an additional $530+ million in educational funding. Where the money's going, we're not quite sure. But here's the crazy part. We didn't do anything on taxes, so we really fell into the same category as what we saw in 2012 when we cut taxes, but we didn't cut any spending. Now we spent an additional almost over $1 billion in additional spending. Are we going to be in the same boat in the next couple of years?
Well, I think that's what the projections call for right now. I mean, this is like Topeka-ese or language in the legislature. The runs show that I think in 2 years we're underwater again.
Yeah, 2020.
2020, and so I think, Andy, we spent. It's interesting. Last year we raised taxes $1.2 billion retroactively on Kansas taxpayers, on Kansas workers. And oddly enough, actually maybe not so oddly, that's how much more we've spent in that period of time. And so we have this insatiable, when I say we, government, has this insatiable appetite for spending people's money that they earn out there. It just struck me today. Driving over here and people busting their tails to get to work on time, small business people, HVACs, going to fix the air conditioner because it's going to be 90 degrees today. These are folks that are working their tails off, and we're taking money out of their wallet so that they cannot go out to eat tonight, so that they cannot pay down the college debt for their kid or save for their kid. They cannot go on a vacation. They cannot do what they want to do with their money, and the legislature is just HE double toothpicks bent on spending your money, and it really chaps my hide. It really does.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because we need to hear and see that kind of passion. We didn't see or hear a lot of it, obviously, from the media, which is going to spin everything and try and silence that kind of discussion. But when we're spending $1 billion more, and we're not seeing that. I mean, they're going to hold it up. And I called this at the very beginning in January when you guys started going to the session. I said, here's my prediction of the session. We're going to increase spending. We're going to give education all that they want to or close to. We're not going to raise it because we see the tax receipts higher than projections each month. So the mentality is what we're going to hear is, oh, look, we can afford it because the economy is doing well and we're higher than projections. So we can put that money and apply it to there, we're going to run into a deficit in a year or two again. And come next year for the 2-year budget cycle, after the election, mind you, then we can turn around and say, oh, look, we're short again. Guess we better raise taxes for a third or fourth time.
Yeah, it's the sad part is we saw this coming. We knew it was coming.
Right. And it happened.
And we told... well, for example, when we tried to cut the sales tax on food, I can't tell you how many times we tried that. Every time it failed. Half the time it was because we can't. Why?
1%. I mean, we have 6.8, 6.9%. One of the 6th or 7th highest sales tax in the nation.
Well, on food we have the second highest sales tax.
On food,
yes.
Which I came from a state where we didn't even have sales tax on food. Colorado. When you buy food, there is no sales tax.
No,
on there.
So we're 8th on overall sales tax. The 7 states above us have no income tax.
Right.
So that's the only reason they have high sales tax is because you pay no income tax. We're one of those odd outliers that does both. It's sad. And, the biggest argument we heard on that, and you can thank Jim Ward for the defeat of those, by the way.
Yes, you can.
And the biggest argument we heard on not giving the folks back their windfall, they're allowing them to itemize or including a standard deduction increase, which would have really helped working poor, as I call them, Joe Lunch Pail. That's who really would have benefited.
Sure.
We can't afford it.
You can't afford
That's what we were told. We can't afford it because we need that money for the schools and for everything else so we can make it rain everywhere else across the state.
Yep. And why can't we afford it? I think you just hit it on the head. Because we want to spend money as fast as we can bring it in. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
And the sad part is, and I think Chuck would agree with me, I fully expect that we're going to be called back at some point this session because the court's going to find that school funding inadequate. The plaintiffs have already come out and said, well, it's a good start, but we need more like $1 billion or $2 billion. They have no grasp of reality. They're so detached from reality.
Which, adding it from year to year to year, what we've already been doing is already close to $1 billion, but that's not enough because they wanted immediate.
It's more than that. If you do the cumulative, as they joke, they used to, the revisers and some of the majority leader and a few, well, I guess he is kind of the minority leader, but anyway, they used to joke that it's Whitmer math because they would hate every time I'd bring it up, but I talk about the cumulative amount over 5 years because that's how much new money, and it's $2 billion in new money.
In new money.
And we were talking about the education bill on the House floor, and I went down to the well. And I'm not great at numbers. I have to see it visually. And so I was debating, I believe it was Representative Stogsdill from Topeka. And I said, okay, now tell me, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think it's 174 this year, and then next year it's 174 and 174, and then add it all up, and it's like $2 billion. And he steps to the side and he confers with the minority leader. Goes, you're about a couple $100 million short on that.
Yeah,
I mean, we're kind of walking through.
They didn't deny it at all.
So they know it. They admit it. They acknowledge it and say, yeah, you know what? This is exactly what we're doing, and it's going to be cumulative, and we're going to get to the $2 billion, and then we can turn around and probably say again that it's inadequate all over again.
I think one of the things that's most frustrating for me, I have 3 teachers in my family. 2 of my daughters and my son-in-law are teachers. And I think, Andy, you talk about this a lot on the show, that if you're against something, then you must be anti-something. Mm-hmm. I am so pro-education. I have a son with a disability. I have 3 teachers in my family. Education is the great equalizer in our society right now. And it's sad that we're spending all this money and we talk about accountability. And what does accountability mean? What it means to some of the legislators up there is, well, we're going to do a study in 4 or 5 years and see if it works. And my question is, if it doesn't work, then what? and really, there's no accountability, what I call consequences. And so that, I think, is one of the most frustrating parts for me when we talk about the education debate. What are the consequences? What is true accountability if we're going to spend all this money? If it would solve our problem, which is 1 out of 4 Kansas students are not grade proficient in reading, writing, and math, science, then I'd go for it, actually. Sure. I'd pay that price if it would fix it. It's not going to fix it.
No, and the problem is they just don't get it. I mean, my mother was a teacher. My sister's a teacher. I was just, during our break that we took in April, I went down and spent half a day at Hayesville Middle School.
Okay.
And I sat in a classroom, met with teachers. It was a great experience. And they were telling me all their needs. You know, their primary needs is the money's not getting to the classroom. And then I go and I see the $80 million admin building that Topeka Public Schools just built with its new bistro and some of the other expenses. No, I'm serious. It's got a bistro. I asked about it. They said, well, the kids can work there and get credit.
Oh,
okay,
sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's so. I'm going to get credit for my latte degree. I mean, but that's the frustration is the money's not getting where it needs to get, which is teacher pay. We tried to run an amendment on the House floor just to require a 2.5% pay raise to all teachers. It failed. You know who voted against it? Most of the Democrats. This is the kind of stuff that gets so frustrating.
Because they don't want it targeted to where it actually needs to go. We got to take a break for a second. We got some calls on the line as well. 21 minutes past the hour. We'll get to the calls as soon as we come back. We're talking with State Representatives Chuck Weber, John Whitmer. Lots to get to. I don't want to focus entirely on the education the whole time because there's a lot to get to, but it's really important because we just increased the spending. And as Chuck, as you mentioned, I mean, $1 billion more in spending. You're going to work in the morning. We talked about all the work hours that you put in the first hour. And people waking up 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, figuring out what to do with their day, how to take care of their family, and how to go through the grind for another day. And the government comes out and just says, you know what? We just want to use more of your money because you are that money tree, and we'll continue to pick it because we live in that Garden of Eden, apparently, and we are that tree that they can pick from. 21 minutes past the hour. We'll take your phone calls when we come back. Lots to get to. This is The Voice of Reason.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Into the Voice of Reason, making it happen. I'm trying to add a little bit more flavor to the bump music, you know.
Oh, I like this one.
There you go. Good. Get you excited
Kansas,
in the morning.
Baby.
That's the way we roll. 24 minutes past the hour. 316-721-8255. 316-721. Talk State Representatives John Whitmer, Chuck Weber in studio with us for the hours. We talk Legislative Recap 2018, Part 1. Next week on Monday, we're going to be having potentially State Representatives Leo Delperdang, Blake Carpenter, and Brenda Landwehr all in studio for the 8 a.m. hours, so that'll be fun. And then some more possibly thereafter. Let's go to the phones, though. Take a phone call. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, what's going on?
Well, I want to ask these gentlemen, when are they going to start exercising their constitutional authority to rein in these activist judges?
I'm glad you mentioned that. Is a perfect segue into what I wanted to bring up right after that, because the constitutional amendment reigning in the Supreme Court, reigning in the black robes, and saying, wait a second, we have the power of the purse. We have the authority to make budgetary decisions, not the Supreme Court. It was brought up. It was one of the biggest priorities that we went in saying that we were going to do. It got really close. Didn't happen. When are we going to see this? And why did it die?
I serve on House Judiciary, so I was in for all those hearings and voted for the amendment to get it out of committee. Why did it die? Because conservatives are in the minority. That's
right.
I mean, literally during the budget debate, I went down with. I like to run amendments. If you hadn't figured this out yet, it's the only way we can wage the fight right now because can't get a bill out of a committee. So I went down with an amendment to we gave the judges a 2.5% pay raise. And I said, right now, priorities. Let's look at what's important and what isn't important. So I wanted to take that money from the judges, make sure that it went either to the non-judicial or went to the revenue, to the rainy day fund or something. Mm-hmm. And that failed. And one of the reasons it failed is because if we don't, they may sue us. Literally, that was the argument that was given to me, was that the courts may sue us for more funding. These guys, they're just so out of touch. And yet the legislature has yet to figure out that we're equal branches and can stand up to them, but they won't do it.
Yeah, Helen, I appreciate the question, and I think Representative Whitmer has it just right. We just didn't have the votes this session. So I think what you're referring to really is the school finance and the power of the purse should be with the legislature. But there's another issue out there that is going to rear its ugly head perhaps by the end of the year, and that's the live dismemberment abortion law in Kansas that has currently been ruled unconstitutional, that somehow our state of appeals has said that there is a constitutional right to live dismemberment abortion, and the state Supreme Court is probably going to rule. I just talked to somebody who is, who knows for sure, but they said maybe about a week before the election they're going to come down with their decision. And so this is another instance of the court taking power that doesn't belong to them. And what needs to happen is we just need to elect different people, because it's a math problem, and we are on the losing end of the math problem right now in the legislature.
So how are we able, and I didn't even realize of that case, so we have numerous things that's coming out with the courts right now. Number one, of course, is the power of the purse and the finance for education. Number two is the fact that, and you guys tried this as well, being able to stop litigation of taxpayer money used to sue for more taxpayer money, sort of thing.
I ran that amendment a few times.
Which is another attachment to the educational finance. But then this one as well with the abortion issue.
Live dismemberment abortion. I mean, this is a law that was passed a few years ago, and it was challenged, upheld, or actually denied by a district court. Just it's making its way up the food chain, and it's now sitting. It's been there for, I think, over a year now.
Yeah, and the sad part is the premise that they're using, the court, is liberty. In our Constitution, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. They believe that in the context of liberty, the founders of the state intended for a right to abortion to be part of liberty. And now, if they find that, it may very well determine all anti-abortion legislation unconstitutional. So all the work that we've made over the last decade in moving towards a pro-life state may all be undone by one court case.
Would this be a case where whether they make the decision on that side and say that all abortion legislation or restrictions are unconstitutional because of that liberty mindset, would that be taken possibly to a grander scale as examples all across the nation?
It could very well, and that's why this is so important. And this is something right now in the state of Kansas. KDHE statistics from the state, 2 a week are being performed. And so this ruling, when it comes out, could wipe out Kansas as a pro-life state.
That's a scary thought. We got to take a break here. Bottom of the hour. Lots more to get to. We'll touch on more of that and more when we come back. But the courts, really, that needs to be a main priority. When we come back, and I guess you already answered it, was why we didn't see the votes happen or why leadership in both chambers backed out of it, just because maybe they were scared of the fact that they weren't going to get enough votes on it anyways. But we can talk about that and a heck of a lot more. Your thoughts and calls as well. Bottom of the hour news coming up. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Wichita's fastest growing radio show. You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Making it happen. That's the way we roll on a pre-Friday celebration. Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We just need to carpe diem all over the Stagon place. We're going to clean it up with a mop. That's the way we roll here.
I'm not even going to touch it.
Yeah, see, there you go. There you go. Getting you excited for the day. 316-721-8255. In studio here for a little bit longer. State Representatives John Whitmer, Chuck Weber, as we are doing part 1 of our legislative recap 2018. Is a lot of things happened, and then a lot of things just kind of didn't happen, and we want to talk about that. We'll have some more days like this in the coming days with some other legislators to get their opinions and ideas. I do have to ask a question, though, real quick, before we shift gears from the educational side. Let's say the Supreme Court comes back and says, yeah, thanks, but it's not adequate. We need to do this again. And they call for a special session. And they say that maybe, even let's take it to the extreme and say that come the fall of 2018, when we open up schools again, it is not sufficiently funded. We're going to shut them down. The question is, how can they shut them down? And is that a false flag? Is that a threat? Can we call their bluff? Because as far as I'm aware, the state treasurer that signs the checks is not under the judicial branch and cannot be forced by the Supreme Court to say, don't sign the checks to keep the schools closed.
They could enjoin him, issue a court, but he could do it anyway.
He could do it anyway.
Right, he could do it anyway.
So how do they shut him down?
I think it's a bluff. And here's why I think it's a bluff. Because if they shut down the schools, then we find a student who's not getting their education, we file a federal lawsuit, you're violating my civil rights to get an education, and all of a sudden this whole can of worms gets moved from the Kansas Supreme Court to a federal court, and the Kansas Supreme Court then loses power, and they're going to get their butts beat on this, and some sanity might actually enter the conversation then. So that's why I think it's a bluff. I think the court knows that if they try and shut down the schools, they're going to lose control of this in the courts because it's going to go to the feds.
But we blink every time. The legislature has yet to stand up to them. So why shouldn't they threaten it?
Why they're going to threaten it, and if they can't do anything and it may go to a higher court, and that potential of a lawsuit is there to take it to another court, why have we not actually grown a backbone and said, yeah, you know what, it ain't going to happen, try it. And I know that at the end of Governor Brownback's term, he had mentioned something like that, let's try and take it to a higher court. Now, I don't like the courts resolving issues as much as we kind of rely on sometimes, because that does give the judicial branch more power as we continue to go up that ladder. But at the same time, let's try it, let's take it up there, and let's take it out of the hands of our state Supreme Court that has one of the worst records in the country as a state Supreme Court, with issues being overturned at circuit and district courts.
Oh, yeah, they're the most overturned court in Kansas history. Most overturned. And, I mean, keep in mind, it took them 16 years to get the Carr Brothers case wrong. So the U.S. Supreme Court is probably used to seeing, it's those guys from Kansas again.
We know how to vote
but
here.
Helen's point was, what she was leading to is this very issue, is we just, the same answer. We don't have the votes to stand up to them. But trust me, we would love to.
Would they try the movement like they did in Oklahoma by rallying the teachers to do the walkout themselves and shut it down inadvertently through teacher protests?
Well, they've had pay raises. That's one difference with Oklahoma. They hadn't had any in years. Last year we gave teachers a pay raise. This year's budget again gives teachers a pay raise. So they could try that.
I don't think they will. I think it's against the law for teachers to strike in Kansas. And, look, I think we conservatives, can I just say, our mantra for education has been students, families, and teachers. And teachers. And I think this message gets lost along the way that we're all for the teachers. That's the most important determination of a good education is a good teacher in the classroom. So I really think we have the teachers' backs. It's the administration that is out of control, and it's also the bond issues. We have buildings. One of our friends, State Representative Joe Syward, has a gallery of abandoned school buildings around Kansas that we're still paying for.
Wow.
And they're not even being used. The
bonds are not expired, but yet it's still there.
Yeah.
We're just not using them. So, the question is, why have we not been able to fix it? Because of the false threats, as you mentioned. Take it to another lawsuit, stopping them from shutting down the schools. They really can't do anything. It drives me nuts why it's a false threat. We need to call their bluff. Obviously, the politicians in Topeka don't know how to play cards or actually know how to bluff or actually know how to call somebody's bluff when they see it, because it's blatant in front of our face, and yet we're not doing anything about it.
There's not enough votes. It comes back to that. Elections have consequences.
Yeah, I think the other thing, Andy, we talked about this on the break, is that there are a large number of Kansas counties, not Sedgwick County, but if you go west, you have a huge portion of the working population works for the government, whether that's in a school, a road crew for the county, a city government, county government. And so you have, a pretty big portion of Kansas counties are employing government workers. And so the representatives and the senators in those areas, they know that because those people go to the polls. And so it's a political reality that we have to deal with. And Kansas is a very diverse state in terms of urban and rural, and it gets tough, and that's why we don't have the votes. And I think we just need to knuckle down. And those of us who are conservative, I'd say there are about 15 swing seats in the House. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Maybe 15. And those are the ones we need to focus on and grow a backbone and bring sanity back to the conversation.
Bring some more to it. The other part of this discussion that, should be out of your guys' hands that you shouldn't have to worry about is the fact that when the money goes down to the district, it's the local school board that sets up the money. And when we see districts like, what did the Kansas Policy Institute say? 78 districts a couple years ago went down in student enrollment, up in a number of administrators. That shows what their priorities are, because you guys don't delegate that. You just hand off the money to the district and say, here you go. And then they decide where the money is going. And the local school boards are the ones that actually are giving, the fourth assistant superintendent the pay raise and hiring more people and saying, we need that. But the teachers...
and often cases in these rural districts, I have a large chunk of my district is rural.
How many school districts do you have in your one state representative district?
All within Sedgwick County. I still have all or parts of 9 school districts.
school districts.
And yet it's all within Sedgwick County.
Sure.
And now, that being said, I don't think these rural districts are necessarily the problem, because I know districts where the superintendent is also a teacher and a bus driver.
Right.
But when you have districts like, say, Wichita, where the school board lets the brand new superintendent have a pay raise after she's been on the job for 90 days, or they have 2 lobbyists on payroll, a full-time lobbyist on staff, and then they hire an outside company, or you have, the aquatic center, the $20 million aquatic center being built up in Topeka. These are the things that frustrate me. And I'm with Chuck. I want to get that money to the classroom. I want to go teacher pay. I want to retain good teachers. But you can't do that if we're spending money on aquatic centers.
Well, I need my aquatic center so I can sink after I eat all the tacos on Cinco de Mayo. Let's go to the phones. What do you say? 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. It's Ron.
Ron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. First, I'd like to thank Representatives Weber and Whitmer for being our voice in this wilderness we're in.
Well, thank you. You're welcome.
Yep, happy to do it.
One of my things, I'm very active politically, and I help out people. And I want to tell people they need to quit just listening. Not only listening. They need to listen to Andy, but they need to get out and help candidates go up there, get them elected, and that's what I'm doing now. And John knows me very well, and I get out there and I help people. And that's what it's going to take to get the numbers we need to change things up there.
He is absolutely right. It's, go door knock. Go walk in a parade. If you can't do that or you don't want to do that, I'm sorry to do it, but write a check. But these are the keys. We have some seats that, even in Sedgwick County, we've got a seat that's in, so the district just north of mine that has the northern part of Hayesville, that's currently held by a Democrat, Steve Crum. That's the only district in the entire 4th Congressional District that's held by a Democrat that was won by President Trump. That's a seat we can win.
Sure.
We should win it.
But the KNEA and the KASB are going to put lots of money and volunteers into defending him, because he's a teacher and his wife's a teacher and they're both on the school board. And so who do you think is going to defend him? Mm-hmm. But those districts, some of these other districts around Sedgwick County, get out there and help somebody. If write a check, make phone calls for them. That's going to be the key, because if we can spin just a half a dozen to a dozen seats in the House, that's a phenomenal difference.
Which is, by the way, very possible.
Oh, absolutely.
Very possible.
It's just the activism. Ron, I appreciate that, absolutely, because you bring it, and I try to encourage activism all the time on the show, and I get it. People are busy, they're working, they're worried about the daily grind, but it's just that couple minutes to make those phone calls, or to even, and I read the email that I received earlier in the show. I thought it was kind of entertaining. But you guys, how many emails do you get from your constituents asking, hey, support this, vote for this, don't vote for that, what about this issue? And just reach out to you.
Yeah, I get them all the time, and I make a point of responding to every one of them, even the ones like yours. I still respond, and I keep a few of the gems. But no, I make sure to respond to every one of them. But then I also now have that email address, so that I can then send them my newsletters. And when I'm requesting folks to come out and volunteer, or folks to help walk in a parade, they're going to get that email. So at least it's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that's part of our duty as reps, I think, is to make sure that we are at least taking the time to return phone calls and emails.
And I get emails. I need more. Frankly, I need more emails. And maybe I'm setting myself up here, but but I mean, bring it on. I mean, I have now. Let's have a civil conversation, and I'm happy to do that. There are a few people.
It's hard to find sometimes.
Well, it is, and the civil discourse out there is, by and large, it's to the wayside. But if I have a chance to, I've actually had an opportunity to engage people and say, look, let's just talk about Southeast High School. This is on a doorstep. I said, how can we afford $63 million new high school, but you as a teacher, you get crumbs off the table.
Right.
Whose graduation rate is down, by the way.
After the school. I mean, that's a whole nother, drive me crazy sort of topic. But I think just if you have a conversation with folks, and sometimes I don't win them over, but you know what? I think the best thing that I can hear from someone is I never thought about it that way before. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, even if I don't get your vote, even if I don't get your support in any way, I find that to be at least a moral victory.
Or at least, worst case scenario, them come back and say, you know what, I disagree. but I understand and I respect you for actually taking the stand. Look, I have callers all the time to where they may hate my guts and disagree with everything that I stand for, but because we actually stand and we defend it, we explain it, we understand the issues enough to have that dialogue that they may disagree, but they'll at least respect you more rather than you being the wishy-washy and just kind of saying, oh, well, I guess you're right, and then just kind of washing on whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
And that's what people want in a dialogue today.
Yeah. Part of that's on us, though. I mean, I've done, let's see, we've got another coffee, we call them coffee conversations. Got another one coming up, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. The
I like
19th.
Jim Beam better.
Okay. Can't do that and have a good conversation.
Have a good conversation.
Not one that I wouldn't want a reporter sitting in on. But that one's Cheney. But I've done the rest of them.
Sure.
I've done Hayesville and Goddard. That's one of the things. And I'm like Chuck. I love to door knock.
Sure.
And so we're already out door knocking. And the biggest feedback I hear is nobody's ever come to my door. You're the first I've done 9,000 doors in the last 2 cycles.
Sure.
I still have people say, you're the first politician to come knock on my door.
Here. Unbelievable.
I think the other thing I would say is I learn new things as well. I mean, this might come as a shock to people, but I'm not locked in on every single issue. I mean, I have my principles, I have my core, but I learned one of the things that I think have come to appreciate is mental health in Kansas and mental health funding. And I push for mental health funding. I push for a lottery vending machine bill so we can fund mental health. And I view it as a security issue because we're taking what I've learned by opening up my mind and my heart to a conversation is we have police officers taking care of people on the street who they don't need to go to jail. They really need mental health services. And so what that's doing is when we take police officers off the street, it's a security issue. That's how I first and foremost look at that. And so we as legislators, we learn. I mean, I love being a legislator because you have so much information coming at you. And if your heart is open and your mind is open, we do learn things.
Sure.
And we're open to different, our principles are set, but we learn about the issues, and it's fabulous.
Mm-hmm. There was an issue, and we're getting short on time already. It goes by way too fast. But one of the issues that I wanted to talk about with you guys, and Chuck, since you were here, was talking about the Medicaid expansion issue and with the funding and with the services because of your son and everything that you guys go through. And we didn't get a chance, so we're going to have to do that again later. But it's such an issue, and I've realized as we mentioned the activism and kind of wrap that up is unless you do it yourself, it doesn't get done. I've always learned that at a very early level. When you rely on somebody else, a lot of times it doesn't get done, and the person that you ask to do something is the person that's too busy to do it, because if they're passionate about it, they'll make sure to get it done because that type of work ethic. And that's what we need when it comes to political activism.
Yep. Well, and he's right about getting out and get off your couch. Just go help out. Otherwise, we're going to get the same thing when we come back.
Well, we complain about having the same thing.
Right.
That's right.
We got a couple minutes left, but your guys' thoughts on this session being done and next session, what could it look like? Depending on what the elections are, I mean, obviously we could gain some, we could lose some, whatever it could be, but going into a 2-year budget cycle, not increasing taxes per se, or not even lowering taxes, but increasing spending by close to $1 billion, what's your anticipation for 2019 session?
I would say, first of all, we did have a tax increase this session because we had the quote-unquote windfall, should have gone back to taxpayers. And so I think one of the things that we can do right away, right out of the gate next year, if we have the votes, is let's start giving Kansans back the money that they earned, first of all. And so I think that's a real possibility in terms of fiscal policy. I think that's something that we can do next year. Because what we said is the state is going to keep that money right now, and we're going to spend that. And what we can do with the votes is say, nope, that belongs to the people. So that's, I think, at the top of my list in terms of fiscal policy.
No, he's right. And keep in mind, that bill failed because we were 4 votes shy.
4 votes.
So that shows you how, either guys were out of town or we have a few people change seats. Mm-hmm. That'll fix that. And it's the same thing with lowering the sales tax. I tried to lower the state. I tried to repeal the 2015 sales tax increase. Didn't get enough. Didn't even get a chance. But if we get just a half a dozen to a dozen seats that can flip from D or from more moderate Republican, shall we say? I'll be nice. I'm being kind. That's all it would take.
Sure.
And to answer your question, what's the next legislative session going to look like? Well, it'll look exactly the same if we don't fix some of these seats.
And that's what we have to do. It still boggles the mind. 1% sales tax. I don't know how much revenue that creates when it comes to food.
$60 million.
$60 million for 1% on food.
Basically. Thereabouts.
And to lower that, it would have been all hell breaks loose. I can't believe that we actually
can't afford
like
it. That's what I was told. We cannot afford it. They tried. I mean, I cannot tell you how many procedural tactics were used to try and kill, because I've tried it 8 times. and every time they used a procedural tag. We never really got a full vote this year. We did last year. We got up to 55 votes. Again, 55,
just
so
a few short.
There's your number, 8. But this year we didn't even get a vote because I think they knew deep down that had they actually allowed a vote on it, it would have passed because it's an election year.
We are so close. As you mentioned, 8 to 15 seats. We are so close. And if we got that turned around, we could really do some really positive things.
Yeah, our tax policy, our colleague, Representative Highland from Wamego, he calls it the Make Missouri Great Again Act. I mean,
hashtag.
Hashtag Make Missouri Great Again. And that is more of a shot at our Johnson County brethren up there because, Wichita, we're somewhat isolated, although not really. For the first time since I've been in the legislature, I received emails and phone calls from small business people saying, why are you taxing me back to, January of last year? I mean, I planned my whole year, and now you're going to take money out of my pocket that I was going to use to either hire someone new or pay someone better or expand my, machinery or my capital improvements for my company, a new van for my plumbing company or whatever. And so I think these are the things that we need to address next year.
State Representatives John Whitmer, Chuck Weber, I appreciate you guys so much coming in studio to talk about this. It's an important issue, and as the elections come up, well, I'm sure we'll talk again soon and getting ready for the new session, but I appreciate you guys very much coming in studio today.
Happy to be here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Always a good time. Let's take a break, about 6 minutes at the top of the hour. We'll have just a few minutes when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into it, wrapping up the show today. Thanks again to State Representatives Chuck Weber, John Whitmer. As we do part 1, we'll do part 2 on Monday, maybe a part 3 as well. We got so many legislators in our area that I want to talk to and want to chat with and get their takes on this because everybody's got a unique perspective on these things. And I'd really like to get all of their perspectives, even if it is kind of regurgitating some of the same topics. Their different perspectives and unique ideas can give us the tools and the resources we need to really be able to fight this the best way that we know how to. So appreciate those guys very much. So we'll play some of that interview again tomorrow a little bit if we can. On Monday, we're looking at State Representatives Brenda Landwehr, Blake Carpenter, and Leo Delperding in studio for that one on Monday in the 8 o'clock hour. But did you hear? 6 seats, 12 seats, 15 seats. We can turn them in the House, make them either Republican or a little bit more conservative from what we have right now, and we could really get some change. We could stop the crazy spending increases. We can stop the educational funding. We can start a constitutional amendment against the Supreme Court. We can actually lower some of the sales tax so you can actually afford to buy groceries. We can do it. It's only 6 seats, 10 seats, 15 seats. It's very easy. I don't see a blue wave happening in Kansas either, do you?